As you may have seen in the press, Number 10 are in something of a panic because with just over a week to go before the US elections, it seems to have just clocked in 10 Downing Street what a Biden victory would actually mean for their Brexit plans. So they have been in outright panic. It is reported that across European capitals, they think that Boris Johnson is waiting, like holding up his decision about whether to go for a thin Brexit deal or a crash out no deal Brexit, because he's waiting to see what happens in the US. In short, if it's Trump that comes back in, then he knows he can go for his no deal Brexit and give two fingers to the EU, thinking that he'll have a buddy in Trump that will do a quick trade deal with him and therefore prove his whole model of Brexit. But if that doesn't happen and it's Biden, well, then he is somewhat screwed, because as Biden already said, if there's a no deal Brexit, then that is endangering to the Good Friday Agreement and the Irish border. Biden won't do a deal with the UK and would quite possibly do a deal with the EU, leaving the UK absolutely hanging. So now what we've got is, if Biden wins on the 3rd, and by the Economist modeling, then the chance of him winning a popular vote are about 99%, and the chance of him winning the Electoral College vote about 93%. God, fingers crossed. But if he wins, then on November the 3rd, Boris Johnson is sitting there having to go for a thin deal with the EU because he's been completely boxed in or boxed out of other options, and the EU knows that. So what kind of a negotiating position is that? It's really, really daft. And it didn't have to be this way. Now, to be fair, back in the early summer, and I remember I told you guys about it at the time, they did in Number 10 contemplate or recognize that Biden was ahead in the polls, right? And so they tried to reach out to him diplomatically. They tried to get conservative MPs that had links through to the Democrat Party to start building up those connections. And even though it's an election season, and generally speaking, the Democrat Party and in particular this time round, they don't want external contacts. Nevertheless, there was some sort of links made, and there was chat in the UK press from the Conservative Party about, oh, wouldn't Biden fit beautifully in the Conservative Party? And oh, by the way, they really don't like Trump that much. They always thought he was a bit crazy. Wouldn't it be so much better to do a deal with Biden? They were sucking up. They were prepping that ground. Then what did they go and do? The internal markets bill, but not just the internal markets bill. They decided to announce it in Parliament. Yes, this does break international law. They actually said that in our Parliament, and then got surprised. They got so much for the super forecasters here, okay? So much for Number 10 super forecasters and being able to gameplay far down the line here. They actually announced in our Parliament, yes, it does break international law, and thought that no one internationally would notice that we have just said that in the Mother of Parliaments. Well, Pelosi noticed it, and she kicked off on it. So then our Conservatives decided to attack Pelosi. Good one. And then when that ramped up, and then Biden actually later stepped in to say, this ain't cool. If you go down this path of breaking international law, you're not having a trade deal with us. Then you got Conservatives attacking Biden as well. Joy Morrissey, MP of Beaconsfield, attacked him. So did Ian Duncan Smith, writing a whole piece on it. Well done, guys. Really smart. Where are you now? So they also forgot at that stage that although they think that the UK and the US have a special relationship, of course, Ireland and the US have a more special relationship, especially during a time of a general election. You've got to think about all those Irish Americans. Joe Biden himself, proudly Irish American. And furthermore, if you think, yeah, but the UK economy is bigger than the Irish economy. Yeah, but the Irish economy is part of the single market, the European single market, which is bigger still. And furthermore, Biden himself has already, back in 2018, expressed anti-Brexit sentiment, saying this really undermines the West, what you are doing. And he is well known to be a traditional, old school Atlanticist between Europe and the US. And so, with all of that going on, they've really got themselves stuck in a box. So, what are they trying to do now? Well, they're trying to still reach out to the Biden camp, even though during an election, the Biden camp is not trying to build up international relationships, because, you know, Russia last time in the last general election, there was such a furore around that. They're trying to keep it clean. So they're then thinking about, right, how can we, when he comes in, sort of smooch with him, like really quickly, get close and offer him the trade deal and say, well, we've only got until July, you know, by US law, in order to get this all done and ratified. Can we Bidenize the deal for you? Can we say, we'll include more workers' rights and environmental protections? Like, they didn't care about workers' rights and environmental protections when it was Trump sitting there, but now suddenly the UK side do and want to offer it as a concession to the US, that we would care about the environment. What that? Anyway, but that's what they're doing. So that is what they're gambling on now. So one, they are going to, if Biden comes in, have to sign up on a thin deal with the EU if they want to escape being completely billionomate. That's what they're going to have to sign up to. So the EU's got them completely over a barrel, and then they will try and get a trade deal with the US, offering them a deal that means so much to them, but Biden actually doesn't care about, and they'll probably look at doing a deal with the EU first in order to rebuild that links, because of course trade deals are much more political than they are sort of financial. And so that's what's going to happen, and it's going to be very hard for them to sell a trade deal between the UK and the US anyway, given that political dimension, because Joe Biden and the Democrats, they fully remember that Boris Johnson talked about Obama's part Kenyan ancestry as a reason why Obama was cool on Britain and Brexit and all of that. They will also be fully aware of watermelon smiles and all of Boris Johnson history with quotes about letterboxes, all of that which they see Trump reflected in him. They'll be fully aware that Donald Trump called himself Mr. Brexit and called Boris Johnson Britain Trump, and the camaraderie that they had right from the get-go. They endorsed each other. And they will also be fully aware about the Russia report. And Russia is one area where they really want to clean up the meddling. So how on earth are they going to work with the UK that won't admit that it's got a problem? One of the first things they'll do is they'll put demands on the UK to fully investigate itself with regard to Russian interference. Heck, in the US, they are already starting to investigate the UK-Russia links for their own security. So that's going to come down hard too. So that's where we are. I find it quite incredible that they blew it so badly with the Breaking International Law and Internal Markets Bill, and didn't understand at that stage that it was a bad idea to go attacking Biden and let conservatives go and attack Biden, when actually even top Republicans were saying the same thing. It was common across the full House of Representatives. It's a bipartisan issue in the US about the protection of the Good Friday Agreement and their loyalties towards Ireland. Absolutely blown it. Now look at their box they're in. Firstly, they're waiting on what is the result of this US election. And then if it's Biden, they'll be over a barrel with the EU. And then they likely won't get a trade deal with the US before the US and the EU get together and do a trade deal. Maybe the UK will beg to be a third wheel in those negotiations and brag that, you know, this is the great, alignment of the Western powers, the EU, the US, and the UK coming together to decide stuff. But in reality, a tripartite agreement would be the US and the EU deciding terms and the UK just having to swallow it. So much for our sovereignty, so much for our power. That's where it would be. In fact, if we want to rebuild the special relationship, and this is the concluding remark here, if Biden comes in, if the UK wants to rebuild the special relationship, as we call it, with the US, our best route to doing so will actually be through Europe, through making peace with Europe, through rebuilding with Europe, through playing a responsible role and team member with Europe. That's going to be the route to it. Okay, I'm done for tonight. Take care and fingers crossed for a Biden win, because that's what the world needs.